This session is the state-of-the-art research on children's environmental epidemiology and its future strategy. This symposium is organized by WCE 2017 and the Ministry of the Environment, Government of Japan. At this symposium, we report the progress of Japan Environment and Children's Study, JECS, which is a large-scale birth cohort study and a national project of the Ministry of Environment. And four speakers who are top leaders in this field will present the latest research result in environmental medicine. So after four speakers' presentation, we move on to panel discussion.
JECS is a large-scale and long-term birth cohort study being conducted by Ministry of the Environment as the national project for 2027. And it is epidemiological survey concerning children's health and the environment, involving approximately 100,000 parents-child pairs, whose growth is development will be follow-up until they become 13 years old. The study is being carried out in collaboration with National Institute for Environment Studies as the program office, and National Center for Child Health and Development as Medical Support Center, and many universities as 15 regional centers nationwide.
She is the director, UC Berkeley Center for Environmental Research and Children's Health Search. So she has spent more than 30 years examining the effect of environmental exposure on male and female fertility, pregnancy, and children's health and development as a neuropsychologist and epidemiologist.
Chemicals on farm worker families, growth, neurobehavioral development, respiratory disease, and pubertal onset. We also do very detailed exposure studies, how to measure different chemicals, validation of chemical exposure. We look at mechanistic studies, not just how a particular chemical works on the human body, but also epigenetic and genetic information. And a good part of our research is on community outreach and translation activities. So the Chamacos, as I said, is a longitudinal birth cohort study. We enrolled the women during pregnancy. We followed their children up at 6 months, 1 year, 2 year, 3.5 year, 5 year, 7 year, 9 year, and then every 3/4 of a year after that as they got through puberty, and then at 14 and 16 years.
Dr. Patel is an assistant professor of biomedical informatics, Harvard Medical School in the US. His long-term research goal is to address problems in human health and disease by developing computational and bioinformatics methods to obtain reproducible high-throughput data streams spanning molecules to populations.
So I think my recommendations for designing a children's study are the following based on some of these genomic and large-scale data science exercises that we have done with genomics and environmental science. And that is, I think we need to increase sample sizes and make the data publicly available and measure genetics to discover the role of environment and phenotype. So increasing sample size, I think this these are great examples of how we've increased sample sizes and made the data publicly available through efforts like the UK Biobank and now emerging the China Kadoorie Biobank of sample size of almost in combination millions or so participants. And these, what they've been able to do is generate wide interest and visibility in this type of research. So already the UK Biobank, they've just released their 500,000 cohort, and already on bioRxiv, our preprint server, we've seen papers appear about using these data already. And so these are going to be hot data sets to do data science. And also it'll enable us, by having these data sets in the public domain, enhance reproducibility and potentially decrease false positives.
Dr. Nakayama is the head of the Exposure Dynamics Research Section Center for Health and Environmental Risk Research, National Institute for Environmental Studies, Japan. He is a lead exposure scientist for the Japan Environment and Children's Study, which is a longitudinal birth cohort study involving 100,000 mothers and children.
So we started the Japan Environment and Children's Study, so-called JAX, in 2010. And then we started the recruitment in January 2011. And then we continued the recruitment for 3 years, and then completed the recruitment in March 2014. Then we're now following up the kids until they become 13 years of age. The JAX is a nationwide birth cohort study. The participants are from the northmost region of Japan, all the way down to Okinawa. And then here's the map. Most of the study centers are recruited more than 3,000 to like 9,000 participants. Each single one is larger than most of the cohort studies.
I will ask each panelist the question in turn. The question is, what are the strengths and possible limitations taken into account in your study?
So as to the strength of doing a study of 600 is that we were able to get very, very detailed information about pesticide exposure and also the practices in the community, which I think would be harder to get if we were working on a large scale or across the United States. We were also able to engage the community in very real ways and affect policy in our community that I think would be harder to do on the larger scale.
I would like to mention the other fantastic advantage that Scandinavian countries have, and that is the registry linkage possibility. For virtually every citizen in the country, we have a unique ID number, and we can link completely to what has been recorded in the registries. And from that point of view, we have 100% follow-up rates. And that will continue unless the mother or the child or both definitely say that they don't want to be in the cohort any longer. But that's luckily a very, very small percentage.
I told you that they are able to, in GWAS, assemble cohorts on the size of hundreds of thousands. That's not one investigator. That's not even a handful of investigators. If you look at these papers, they're on the order of hundreds of investigators all contributing. And so I do think that in the future, in this research, it's all about how we harmonize data across multiple cohorts to get the sample sizes to do that those power-hungry analyses.
And also, with the larger cohort size, the specificity becomes bigger. I mean, if we say no effect, we can say more confident than a smaller cohort for the no effect. But the backside is that we're the super tanker compared to the motorboat. We can't turn very quickly, and then we consume so much fuels. And then, so study design studies should be well designed, and cannot change so quickly. So that we, and then also we cannot do such a detailed, the investigation like the Chamacos, because we're, mainly using questionnaires and then also the national registry type of thing. We cannot meet 100,000, participants. But we try.
We are closing this session, and Dr. Kennedy taught us a lot of our advantage of the small birth cohort, but because of the selected population would be washed out in the large-scale cohort. But the knowledge from the selected populations help us to understand diversity, or that even is very important at the viewpoint of the health of all, for all. And Dr. Olsen's studies findings have contributed to understanding the DOHAD concept, right? And today, he didn't mention in detail, but we are so jealous of the Danish systems on personal unique number and disease registration. That one is for the advantage of the longitudinal studies. So, and Dr. Patel presented the cutting-edge findings of the genome research and encouraged us epidemiologists to collaborate with basic scientists. And Dr. Nakayama explained Jack's project from START background to today's situations. And I hope most of the audience understand the Jack study and feel like to join us. Okay, so I would like to close this session by thanking for all presenters for their contribution and audience. Thank you very much.